Welcome to the Investfourmore Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Ferguson, and I am your host. I'm a house flipper. I flip 10 to 15 houses a year. I own 13 rental properties with a goal to buy 100 by 2023. I'm also a real estate agent. I've been licensed since '01. I run a team of 9. We sell close to 200 houses a year. So on this show, we like to interview house flippers, landlords, and the best real estate agents in the business. So stay tuned for some great shows. If you want more information on my rentals, on the numbers, how I buy properties, check out Investfourmore.com. Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Investfourmore. Welcome to another episode of the Investfourmore Real Estate Podcast. I have a great guest on for this show, Dean Ueda. I'm hopefully pronouncing that name right. It's spelled Ueda, so I had a little tough time with that one. He is from Hawaii, which I think is very interesting, seeing how he is invested where real estate market is very tough to invest in because of prices. But he's got properties in Chicago, Las Vegas, Hawaii. He's had properties in Denver, and then he's looking to invest in Milwaukee as well. And along with being a real estate investor, Dean is a full-time CPA, and he just got his real estate license. So we're going to talk with Dean, see how he's been successful investing from Hawaii, what his plans are, and hopefully we can all learn a little bit. Dean, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Oh, no. Thank you for being on the show. So you've got a few rental properties now, and you're a full-time CPA. I'm curious, were you always interested in investing in real estate, or did that come on later in life? What first got your attention with real estate?
I guess it all started back in, I think it was 2003. My girlfriend at the time wanted to move in together, and we both were living with our respective parents, and so I was cool with it, but the deal was that either I would buy or she would buy, right? I didn't want to pay some stranger's mortgage. So I would be willing to pay hers or help with hers. But so we both got pre-qualified, and I guess I felt more comfortable with the process in the purchase process. So I ended up getting a place, and we were living it for a while. And then fast forward 5 years later, we ended up splitting up, but it was time for me to move on, and I wanted to upgrade to a house. And so, worked with my same agent that I bought with, and we listed again, and I realized how much the place had appreciated in 5 years. It was amazing. So just to give you an idea, I picked up the place, small 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, picked it up for I think $205,000, and ended up selling it for $385,000. So that was like a 88% tax-free gain, right? So I think that's what made me realize the appreciation side of real estate and how that can, help be a very good wealth builder.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think making that much money on your first house you buy would be a definite eye opener. And then you mentioned one thing that's really key too is you're an owner occupant. You live there, so you didn't pay any taxes on that money either, which is just a massive advantage with buying real estate. Yeah, very cool. And did you take that money and buy more? What'd you do after you sold that first one?
Yeah, so I ended up buying a house, a larger house in the similar area, and that one I have right now, and I'm actually thinking of selling that one. But so with that said, yeah, that's why, as we talked earlier, I did get my real estate license, thinking of leveraging that, right, to save on commissions.
Right. Nope, that makes sense. And we're going to get into that soon. Before we get into that too quick, you've got houses in Hawaii, Chicago, Las Vegas. How did you end up buying properties all over the country? Was it because prices are so high in Hawaii that you kind of moved out to different areas? Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's really hard without a really big down payment to make anything cash flow in this state. So as such, around 2012 was my first real, investment property that I ended up looking in Las Vegas. So at the time, I was, traveling, and actually I was going to Las Vegas a lot for fun with my friends. So, that being said, I would thinking Las Vegas would be a great place to buy investment property, for the obvious tax advantages. So the funny thing was, I had a friend that had invested in Las Vegas, and he had purchased right before the subprime crisis. So when I was talking to him about it, his investment was underwater, So he was kind of telling me the situation and almost, not to say talking me out of it, but it was, it was a sad story. So I kind of pushed it off for a little while and said, okay, well, maybe let's not look over there. But eventually, luckily, one of my friends and old coworkers was investing in Las Vegas through a few agents had moved over from Hawaii over to Las Vegas, and they were doing business there. And they also had a property manager who had Hawaii ties. And so, my friend was telling me what he was getting and how it was cash flowing out. And I said, okay, well, maybe it is time then. So this was in 2012. And have you heard of the Home Pass program?
Yes, with Fannie Mae.
Yeah. So it was it was in 2012, and there was this Home Pass had this really great program where, first they would offer these foreclosed properties that were in their portfolio to the owner occupants, right? And that was for the first look for the first 30 days, and then it would go out to anyone, investors. But the real appealing part to this program was that, well, one, you could I think I could put 10% down. There was a 30-day closing guarantee period. You didn't have to pay for a professional appraisal for the financing. And then they tried to make it as turnkey as possible, and they did things like, they would do a rekey for you and all these great things. So I ended up picking up a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot place over in, it was in Anthem. And so $145K, and it was, I think the rent at that time was about $1,300. So it was okay in terms of cash flow, but I guess I got to luck out in this property too, because when in turn I wanted to sell 2 years later, it had gone up about $90,000. So I got that property, and I decided that I wanted to bring it back to Hawaii, meaning I did a 1031 exchange basically, and I brought the property back to Oahu is what I did.
Oh, that's awesome. And for those of you wondering, yeah, HomePath had a really awesome program for investors. Like you said, you could put 10% down. They were foreclosed properties from Fannie Mae. A lot of times they put in new carpet, new paint, did a lot of cosmetic repairs. However, they no longer offer that program. So they don't do the 10% investor loans anymore. And it was really nice because they'd already appraised the property, so you never had to worry about it not appraising. It was a pretty sweet program. But unfortunately, it's not around anymore, which does us no good.
Yep.
So when you exchange that property into one in Oahu, what was the rental property like there in Hawaii?
Well, yeah, like I said, it's the markets, the prices here are pretty high. So I guess like I said, I had a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot single family home in Las Vegas, right? And that which I sold for $235, and I brought it over to Hawaii, over to I guess it's Kapolei, a suburb in Honolulu. So I paid $305 for that one, and that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse that was renting out when I first got there for about $1,750. To give you an idea of the numbers, I guess.
Right, a little different, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
Were you just thinking? Are you thinking appreciation with that when you buy those? Just kind of long-term investing?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I think in talking to my Las Vegas agent, we were kind of came to the conclusion that the Vegas prices might have petered out, I guess, or kind of was at a plateau. So with that said, I was thinking, okay, well, where could I bring it? Well, I guess I just said, what if I was to bring it back here, and then maybe I could try managing it myself. We'll see, and save on management costs, and at the same time try to have more of an appreciation play than the cash flow play, I guess.
Right. No, cash flow is great. I always invest for cash flow. Appreciation's nice too, but it's tough to buy properties from, out of state, especially across the
Mm.
ocean as far away as you
Yes,
are.
yes. That's been a very big challenge for me, especially now that I have a investment property in Hawaii. I'm looking, have been, and I'm looking for new property across the country, basically.
Right. And so now you bought one in Chicago too. So how did you end up buying a property in Chicago?
So I guess what I was trying to do after I looked at what was in my current portfolio, and I said, okay, let's try to put something with a little more cash flow. So I did some research online, and cash flow. I mean, Chicago appeared to be one of the places that had a good cash flow inventory. So for that one, I purchased it with a retail broker who also did property management. I guess their company did both, yeah. And basically, I went onto Yelp and I looked for a brokerage that did both sales and property management. I looked for reviews that were good on both sides in terms of, they had good tenant reviews and also good landlord reviews. Made a few calls to a few of those companies, and this company stood out, and I kind of lucked out because I ended up calling their main line, and the receptionist sent me to an agent who he did a lot with investors. He also managed a small portfolio of rentals too.
Okay. Nice. How were the numbers like on that Chicago one?
So Chicago one, I purchased that one. Let's see, that one was actually a short sale, so that was kind of fun from that standpoint. I had he really looked at all the inventory. We had a few that looked good. I narrowed it down to 3, and I think the short sale was the third option, but the first 2 didn't pan out. And it was a short sale. We picked up for 145, and it's renting out for a little under 1,600.
Okay. Nice.
But that one is I don't know. It seems like the property taxes in Chicago are relatively high, so the return isn't as great. But I think theoretically, we picked that one too because of the fact that it was a short sale, so there was a little bit of forced equity in that.
Nice. Yeah, no, everyone I talked to in Chicago, they have, numbers look really good, but you have to factor in their taxes are they're 10 times higher than they are in Colorado. I don't know how much higher they are than Hawaii, but I mean, it's really high.
Yeah. So that's why it wasn't as much of a cash flow play as I thought it would have been, but I think the fact that we had that built-in equity afterwards was more of the game plan for why I pulled the trigger on that one.
Right. Nope, that makes sense. And did you see that property before you bought it, or were you just completely trusting the agent?
Actually, I did. I did get to see that property. I had gone up last August for a quick trip to some of the inventory up there. That was one of them that I got to see. But because it was a short sale, we put in the offer in September of last year, and it didn't close to, I think, January of this year.
Yeah, no, with short sales, that I've had some short sales I've waited over 6 months to get, but they're well worth the wait.
Yes. I was very happy, and fortunately, that one was actually in pretty good condition, pretty close to turnkey. I ended up doing just a paint job, inside paint job, and everything else was good to go.
Nice, very nice. And then you have bought one in Denver too. So tell us about that Denver property you bought.
Okay, so Denver, that one I purchased in 2015, and the rationale for Denver was because my wife and I like to snowboard, So prior to having my children, we were going to snowboarding once or twice a year. So similar to the rationale for buying Las Vegas, I thought that Denver would be a good purchase. You could visit it, for when we flew up for our trips. So we thought it would be great. Denver, I had my sister actually lived in Denver for a little while, and so she had bought a house up there. So I actually started off by using her referral for her agent. So for the first week or so, I spoke to him, and it didn't really work out. I think he was more of he would have been perfect for someone like an owner occupant who was looking for the perfect place. But from my standpoint, I was looking for more on the numbers standpoint, and someone who could speak to the numbers, someone who had at least some kind of idea of rent rates, and being that at the time, and now too, I guess Denver is and was booming, in terms of the real estate market. So in my mind, I wanted a place that I could act on quickly. The agent should be able to, put on an offer without me seeing it, being that I trust his judgment, So the first agent didn't work out so well. So I had to let him go and pick up another one. So agent number two was great. He could work with investors and had worked with investors a lot. He also could do property management. So that one I picked up townhouse. I think it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $275 in here's the Aurora Cherry Creek area. So that's like 25 miles southeast of downtown Denver. Unfortunately, I think I went about that process a little bit wrong. I guess, hindsight being 2020, I had gone into that purchase and I was kind of like, okay, what do I have available in terms of funds to spend? And I was going to just spend all of it to buy an investment property, not thinking, okay, what are my long-term strategies in terms of my total investment portfolio. So after picking up that property and renting it out for a while, I came to the conclusion that, I think I could at the time, I could have gotten something smaller, probably netted out the same monthly cash flow and basically get a higher return, if I had gotten something a little smaller. So with that said, and with the market going up, earlier this year, I ended up selling the place and pretty much netting zero for a wash, I guess, with the intention of using the funds for other cash flowing investments.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, Denver, Colorado, me being here, it's really tough to cash flow well here with prices so high. I imagine it's the same kind of issue you run into in Hawaii. But if you're going to invest that much money in a property that doesn't cash flow well, you might as well do it closer to where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that one would have been like more of an appreciation play too. But that was after Vegas and before Chicago, actually, right? So we're living and learning, right?
Right, exactly. And then you're buying one more in Milwaukee. So that one I think is a little different property you're buying. Tell us about how that one came into play.
Okay, yeah. So that, I guess it was after Las Vegas, after Denver, after Chicago that I started doing a lot more research and finding out, about turnkey providers. I think that's how I found you, Mark, and I think you had actually referred me to the company that I actually purchased with. Yeah, I started looking in the Midwest more. And I found out about these turnkey providers and kind of these providers that offer, soup to nuts, where they'll find a property, they'll make it into a turnkey condition, and they'll even put in a tenant and be your property manager for you. And of course, they'll take their cut, so you have to pay them their premium. That's understood. But at the end of the day, you have a cash flowing property with a property manager that you've already vetted out. So
nice.
Yeah, so I was looking all over. And I still am actually, but I was looking in Indianapolis, Kansas City, Milwaukee, all over the place. And at the end of the day, it comes down to trust. Yeah, who you gonna trust to take you all the way to the finish line. So this property that came out, and mind you, I was and currently am actively talking to a bunch of these providers because I'm still looking to increase my portfolio. So, but for this particular property, I was talking to the salesperson for a couple. Actually, I was talking to her for a month, and I was gonna go on a trip. So right before I left for the trip, I found out that she was going to be leaving the company. And so she handed me off to another person, and I told the person that, okay, let's wait till I come back from Japan, where I was going for my vacation. So I come back and I touch base with my new salesperson and, try to get the trust from her again that I had got from the previous salesperson, to make sure that she's sending me good inventory. So I got that trust from her and was working with her. We were talking about two specific properties, and we were going back and forth throughout the day via email, considering these two different properties. So, and I had to make a choice because she knew these were going to go. So I believe it was about 8, it was late in the evening in Hawaii, so, which means it was like close to 12 or 1 Milwaukee time. And so she had, I guess, was sending out her last emails, and she said, oh, this inventory, a new property just came on their listing, and she said, oh, here's a little preview to one that's going to come on tomorrow, or so I looked at it, and I was already comfortable with the way they ran their pro formas and their numbers, and so I, looking at it for 10 minutes, I just said, okay, let's do it. So I pulled that trigger on that one, and we actually should be recording today.
Oh, nice. What are you buying that one for?
So that one I'm getting for a little over $70K, and the proposed rent rates are going to be a little over, I think, $1,050 was supposed to be the proposed rent rates that we're going to get from that one.
Nice. That's not a bad deal.
So that's more of, that's what I was looking for in terms of a cash play. Yeah.
Cool. Now I'm curious, you've bought quite a few properties all over the country. Have you been financing them? Are you paying for cash? How have you been managing the purchase of the properties? Okay,
so the first few I've been purchasing with my savings. They've been financed for the most part. All of them have been financed. Milwaukee, I'm actually buying that one cash, but I'm going to do a cash out refi as soon as I get a tenant in there. Yeah. I'm utilizing a home equity line of credit on my primary residence now to help out for down payments and things like that.
Cool. Well, it's not unusual, when you're using your personal residence or using even rental properties to do lines of credit, buy new properties, definitely a common strategy, and just kind of shows how powerful real estate is. Even if you're not buying investment property, sometimes your personal residence can be an awesome tool as well to get into more properties.
Yep. And I think I was lucky, and a lot of it is timing, but I was able to have that equity built up from that very first property that I purchased, and then roll that equity into my current primary residence, so that I think I was benefited from the timing of that.
Right. Yep. And you benefited from the timing of Las Vegas and other places, but at the same time, you can kind of see like, okay, prices are abnormally low here after the crash, or it's not luck that all happens. It's there's definitely some signals and signs you can see to figure out what a good deal is.
Yeah. And it also helps with the great interest rates now, right?
Yes, for sure. That makes a huge difference in what you can afford, and then the equity you pay down as well. It makes a giant difference. Now, you mentioned something earlier about getting your real estate license. You just got it. I'm curious, are you thinking about replacing your full-time job, or are you just going to use that license for investing or selling your own houses?
I guess at this point, it's up in the air. It could go either way. I'd love to be able to pursue real estate investing and sales full-time. So at this point, I had gotten it mainly because I was intending to actually move and sell my primary residence in the next year or two. So I got that for the savings and commission. But as I'm doing my research on these properties, talking to people like you, and I'm coming to realize how much I enjoy this field, I guess. Yeah. So I'm considering it, but with that said, I'm trying to plan out how I would replace my W-2 income and to be cash flowing investments plus my real estate sales. But that's the challenge right now, is to see, how am I going to make ends meet, especially with my two young ones.
Right. No, that's always a concern. And then plus, if you're buying more investment properties, trying to qualify for loans, it makes it a lot tougher when you switch careers as well.
Right. I also like the fact that in my mind, I'm building wealth this way, and I'm also diversifying my investments. I hope that I can, help out people who are in a situation like me, because having a W-2 income, being an employee, we're already invested in the market, right? If you have your 401k plan, or a lot of times traditionally those are invested in the stock markets, in mutual funds or whatnot. So having real estate investment is a great way to, diversify your portfolio in my mind too. So I'd love to try to help out people to be in a situation like me, or even better.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And then, I think you have a unique advantage too, being in Hawaii, kind of all the reasons we talked about why it's hard to invest there. If you could kind of be an agent who helps people invest there, do what you've done by investing in different markets, that I think would be an opportunity as well, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd love to invest in real estate in Hawaii, but don't want to spend. I mean, I don't even know what the median price there is, but I'm sure it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So, and for me, I don't care. I don't mind sharing my numbers, to show them that the proof is in the pudding. So I can show them, okay, these are the kind of numbers you would get if you were to invest in Hawaii. As you just look at what I have, and then here's other stuff that you can, opportunities across the nation if you're comfortable to do so. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then for people who are agents or thinking about agents, if you are an agent in Hawaii, you can't really sell real estate in any other state, but you can always refer people to other agents and get a referral fee. So there is definitely business opportunities by using that license.
Right.
Very cool. And then you had mentioned before too, when we were talking a little bit, you're kind of in the process of looking for a broker right now. So what are you looking for, kind of an investor friendly broker or someone to do more training? What are your thoughts on that?
That's exactly my conundrum right now. Is first of all, finding a broker that's willing to take part-timers is one, and then to your point, I'm also looking to see what kind of training is being provided by these brokerages, and then not only these formal trainings but also informally, because like you said, there's some brokerages that are may not have this formal training, but they're maybe they deal with more development or things that I might not be able to learn in a classroom, but just being surrounded by them, that I might be able to absorb and broaden my horizons, and not just thinking about single family homes, but looking at like hotel development, that kind of stuff. So I'm currently shopping around to see what right match for me, I guess. I haven't fully decided yet, but I'm actively looking.
Nice. Very cool. I'm curious now, you want to use your license to, possibly buy your own personal residence, sell yours. Are you looking to invest in more properties in Hawaii as well?
At this time, I'm probably not right now. I'm still looking in the mainland now. I think I'm, with the goal of trying to move over to, full-time sales and investing for real estate. I think I'll need more cash flowing type properties in my inventory.
Right. And speaking of that, do you have a goal for, how many properties you want eventually, or just kind of buying them as you can, or do you have a certain end number in mind?
I knew you were going to ask that question too, and I couldn't think of a specific amount. I just know that realistically, if I want to be full-time investor in real estate sales, I'd want to try to at least match my after-tax W-2 income. I guess that would be my goal for the investment side. That makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And people have all types of different goals. It doesn't have to be a certain amount of properties. I mean, that's a great goal if you ask me, of having a specific number, income number of what you want to replace. That sounds great as well. So that's probably even better than having a certain number, because you've got, you can have 100 properties that don't make anything, and that doesn't do you much good.
Right. At this point, I can't have the money, my investment or my equity just sitting there for the long term. for my future stuff anyway.
Right. No, very cool. And then are you planning to stay in Hawaii? Any plans to venture somewhere else, or do you want to stay there?
At this point, I think we're gonna stay here. Yeah, and my roots are here. Family and friends are here, so we're gonna stay here for the long haul.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. Very cool. So I'm trying to review some more notes. I'm curious, is the whole real estate license, where to find a broker, is that your biggest question right now? Or do you have other concerns and things that you're trying to figure out as far as the investing side?
Well, everything I've got so far is all single family, right? So I'm kind of interested in looking at more different types of inventory, like multiplexes. If you have, my understanding is those have great cash flow potential too, but that, at the same time, there might be trade-offs with the capex and the deferred maintenance. So I want to venture off more towards, of course, mainland purchases, but looking more towards the multiplexes, complexes for investments. I think that's where I'm heading and where I have the most amount of question.
Okay. No, it makes sense. I've always loved single family personally, just because in my area, it cash flows better than multifamily, which is not like most areas. Usually it's the other way around. But there's just a bigger seller pool if you ever want to sell the house. You're not dependent on other investors. Yeah. And,
true.
If you've got a fourplex, you've got 4 different tenants, 4, leases.
Right.
So, but if you get the right multifamily property that, just blows the water out of single family properties for cash flow, then I think it probably makes sense. Or if you get into, the bigger complexes and different things. So definitely, some opportunities there. But I hear some people that, they want to get into multifamily just to get into multifamily. But, I would say make sure you look at the numbers and you're not doing it just to say you have a multifamily property, but actually makes sense.
I guess to your point, it's a whole other animal, because I think once you get past, 4 units, now you're talking about commercial lending, yeah?
Yes, for sure. Anything over 4, definitely commercial. And at the point you're at with the properties you have, it'd probably be tough. You might have to go commercial even if you do less than 4, depending on the lender you're using. But yeah, definitely a little trickier to finance as well. All right. So have you looked at different areas for multifamily, or is that just kind of at some point you want to invest in them?
I'm looking in Columbus right now, Ohio. That's the only spot that I'm looking for. But I'm open to anywhere. Like all my previous purchases, I'm open to anywhere that makes financial sense. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, and you've definitely diversified your locations. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I'm just looking back here. I'm trying to see. You got your house in Chicago, Denver, buying one in Milwaukee, the Las Vegas property, your Hawaii properties, possibly looking to Columbus. You've done very well. Have you ever thought about flipping houses, or are you just strictly on the rental side?
That's an avenue I haven't pursued, and it's more so because I think, if anything, I was going to consider doing it locally, and my understanding that there's a lot of people out there with a very limited inventory trying to do that over down here. So again, that's something that I'm totally open to. I just haven't looked into it more closely and done the due diligence to see. But yeah, if you have any, I'd love to talk to you about it if you have opportunities.
I would just say, if you're getting your license, if you get into that field of the investment world, it makes it easier to find some of those deals, to, keep your eyes open and look for opportunities. So okay. I would just, it's just something that sometimes they come along when you're not expecting them. So, don't be afraid to be ready for one if you find it.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll definitely keep my eyes open and my mind open.
Yep, exactly. Very cool. Well, I think, we've gone over quite a few things. Do you have any specific questions for me, or anything you want to know about from my side?
I've listened to a few of your other podcasts and trying to prep for this, and I know you had courses for, is it like, not leadership, I'm sorry, but a few of the other callers or guests have been taking courses from you, so I think I'm going to go look into that. Nothing specific, but I was just going to look into that too, yeah, in terms of, especially on the real estate sales side. If I'm going to pursue that full time, I think I'll probably hit you up for those is it seminars or training? I'm not sure what those are called. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm always happy to talk about those if you bring them up, but no. Yeah, no, I just have a couple of programs, one, for the rental properties and one for real estate agents as well, where we just set them up as kind of a video training plus guide plus email coaching with me. And we do conference calls twice a month, basically, where I do a short little presentation and do question and answers on anything anybody wants to talk about. So those are set up to really teach, how to be a great agent, how to invest in real estate. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend them, of course, because I created them. So I'm just a little biased, but we have a good time. We have some Facebook groups and stuff. So I try and deliver as much value as I can with those, and they're not, abnormally expensive like some of the other real estate training out there.
Okay.
So
okay, sounds good. Yeah, definitely look into those. Talk to you about those later.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Well, Dean, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you, talking about your investments, how you've bought properties from Hawaii in the mainland, as you say, and also in Hawaii, getting your license. Kind of cool how, just buying a house, your first house really opened your eyes to the wonderful world of real estate. So I think a lot of people get that. Hopefully, it happens like it did with you and you don't buy at the top of the housing bubble and then it crashes like it did with someone.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for being on the show. Anything else you want to add before we head out of here?
No, that's it. I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast. Like I said, I've never done anything like this, so it was fun.
Cool. Yeah, no, thank you for being on it. And yeah, I've done a couple like this, and it's fun just talking to listeners and readers and seeing what's going on in your world. And you're not, a full-time professional investor, so seeing how you're working through things, I think will help people too who are in the same boat. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Same here.
All right. Take care, Dean. And yep, I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Okay. See you.
All right. Bye.